Morning glory, evening grace, brethren and sisters. Have everybody back on with us here with our Temperance Awakening, and we look forward to doing our next alcohol lecture here today, and going to be looking at Hangover. Not an extremely long lecture, but something that does, do a lecture in its own right. And so hangover, is the catch-all term that refers to the nasty physical symptoms that people typically have the day after drinking alcohol, and that doesn't have to be a large quantity. And once you do have one, you'll never forget how it feels. Hopefully you never go through that, but if you do, hopefully it's only one time in your life and then you quit. And as we said, you don't have to be a heavy drinker to suffer from hangovers. In fact, like a report that appeared in 2000 in the Annals of Internal Medicine said that light and moderate drinkers are actually the most likely to suffer a hangover. And of course, like inexperienced and first-time drinkers are also, at risk as well, because, that's the first time their body's experiencing alcohol. And of course, hangovers aren't just unpleasant to the drinker the morning after they drink, but it can also have a lot of effects on other people too. And they cause a lot of economic damage in the workplace, through absenteeism, lost wages, and poor job performance, for people that go to work with a hangover. And hangovers are also a big factor in the cause of neglect and child abuse by alcoholic parents. The time that they spend laying in bed, with that hangover, it can't be devoted to caring for their child's physical and emotional needs. And now looking at some of the signs, symptoms, and causes, and the most common symptoms of a hangover are mild to severe headaches, nausea, vomiting, a dry mouth, extreme thirst, muscle aches, physical and mental fatigue, dizziness, sensitivity to noise, light and movement, sweating, tremors, and unpleasant emotions such as irritability, anxiety, and even depression. And if you do experience all of these things together, hopefully you'll resolve to never touch alcohol again. But most people, though, only do experience some of these symptoms, depending on the individual's, personal body chemistry, and the type and quantity of alcoholic beverages that they had the night before, and also perhaps even the person's state of mind whenever they were drinking. And just kind of as a general rule of thumb, though, the more alcohol that you do drink, the more likely that you are to have a hangover. And a lot of different things go on in one's body to cause so many different symptoms. Like one researcher said this in the medical terminology: dehydration, the metabolic acidosis, hypoglycemia, disturbed prostaglandin synthesis, abnormal secretion of vasopressin, cortisol, aldosterone, renin, and testosterone, increased cardiac output, tachycardia, and vasodilatation. So kind of in layman's term, he's saying the body has too little water, too much acid, not enough blood sugar, too much or too little of various powerful hormones, too much blood pumped out of the heart at too fast a rate, and dilation of the arteries. Dilation, which is a widening of the arteries. It's a lot of things, that comes from alcohol, why we should abstain from it. And hangovers are actually, though, a kind of alcohol withdrawal. They're the set of symptoms that alcoholics experience when they try to stop drinking or when they're unable to obtain another drink. So by the time the symptoms of a hangover are at their peak, very little ethanol, which is the chemical name for alcohol, or its direct breakdown product, acetaldehyde, is left in the body. But the alcohol has already done its work by causing dehydration or the reduction in the body's water supply. Ethanol is a diuretic, a substance that gets the kidneys to drain water away from other organs. That draining causes the dryness and thirst and probably contributes to the headaches as well. Excuse me. If alcohol itself is no longer in the body, what creates the other symptoms, one might ask? Well, that's congeners. Congeners are impurities that are probably responsible for many of them. These organic chemicals are produced as a byproduct of the manufacture of beer, wine, and distilled spirits. They stay in the barrel or bottle, helping to give each beverage its distinctive flavor. Some of the chief congeners are histamines, which are types of congeners found in alcoholic beverages that cause reactions in people who are allergic, and methanol, a congener that adds flavor to alcoholic beverages. Another found in red wine is tyramine, a congener that can be dangerous for a drinker who also takes antidepressants and can cause headaches all by itself. Like some researchers now say that methanol is the chief culprit. Methanol is found in higher quantities in the types of beverages that usually cause the worst hangovers, such as champagne and also inexpensive whiskeys. Then furthermore, the time it takes the body to break down methanol into its toxic components, formaldehyde and formic acid, is about the same amount of time it takes for a hangover to kick in after you finish drinking. Finally, people whose bodies break down methanol faster do seem to suffer the most. A hangover can be worse if the person's tired or they overdo it while they are drinking. As a person drinks, they become less sensitive to their own body. They probably don't pay attention to their body's signals that they need to stop partying and they need to quit drinking and go to sleep. And even without alcohol, physical exhaustion can cause some of the same symptoms as a hangover. A general state of health and nutrition matters too to a person. Of course, a healthy body is better equipped to handle a temporary assault, such as too much alcohol. And finally, a person's state of mind, as we said, can also have an effect. A study reported in the Journal of Clinical Epidemiology in 1993 confirmed the traditional belief that those who drink alcohol when they're angry, anxious, or depressed are more likely to suffer from hangovers. And so we're going to look here, is this a fact or a fiction? And so somebody asked, as long as you don't mix drinks, you won't get a hangover. And there is actually no evidence that mixing different kinds or brands of alcoholic beverages has any effect on hangovers. A person can get a nightmarish hangover even if they stick with one drink all night. And like if people only have a few drinks properly diluted and spaced over a pleasant evening of food and sociability, they could possibly avoid a hangover. But any drinking, though, can cause a hangover. And so what is the prevention for that hangover? Prevention. Simply not to drink at all, plain and simple. That's the only way to prevent a hangover. It's just completely abstaining from alcohol. As we said, some experienced drinkers, they might learn to just have a couple. But the problem with experienced drinkers is they want more and more. That's why the best thing to do is to abstain from it. And then just lastly here, looking at treatments. Treatment. And there really is no fully effective treatment for alcohol hangovers. Nobody's never really found it. According to one 1997 report in the British Medical Journal, they say the syndrome has too many different causes and it affects too many different parts of the body. Like we looked at, a lot of different parts of the body, a lot of different symptoms, and that just seems to be too much. And some people, like physicians and especially a lot of people with the temperance movement, they fear that an effective next day treatment would do more harm than good by masking the unhealthy effects of overdrinking. Because if you're a person that's having a hangover, you've already done the damage to your body. That's just like if I go out here and, I get on a motorcycle and, I have a wreck and I break my leg and get a bunch of cuts and bruises. It really doesn't matter what they do at the hospital. That's not going to, that's not going to prevent the fact that I already have a broken leg and a lot of bruises and scars. And that's just like drinking. Because, unpleasant hangovers, can help some people understand the damage that they're inflicting on their bodies and potentially other people. These people need to learn to eliminate, their bad drinking habits and, avoid more serious long-term damage. Of course, like a person that's drunk, that gets in a car, they have the high possibility of having a wreck, hurting themselves, hurting other people. And like we said, with other factors, like child neglect. Some partial treatments, though, can help, just to mention these. Often helps to drink a lot of water in the morning after to restore the body's water balance. Like we said, dehydration, that's a major issue. People could also try some over-the-counter pain relievers, like other than acetaminophen, which, we looked at in the warnings and the prevention section that we've already gone over in a previous lecture. Then when studied by scientists, some traditional remedies don't seem to work at all. Like some people use cups of steaming hot coffee, cold showers, exercise, but those things really do little to no good. Sugary tea is one thing that can counteract the effects of low blood sugar. That's one thing like one little home remedy that may have helped people the most. Now, the most dangerous cure, though, is perhaps the most famous one, the hair of the dog that bit you cliché. You know, that means that a person who wakes up in the morning with a horrible hangover should have a fresh alcoholic drink to deaden the pain. And there's no scientific explanation why this temporary cure might work. It does work for some people temporarily. But see, the issue is the alcohol in the new drink keeps the liver from breaking down the methanol from the old drink into the toxic chemicals that might cause hangover symptoms. See, unfortunately, this new drink has its own supply of methanol and other congeners. And the whole unpleasant cycle is just going to begin again. See, that's not really a cure. That's just kind of a masking thing. That's going to put the hangover going to put the hangover off for a while. You know, when you have a hangover, your body's gone through the mill. You know, all the systems need to rest, for several hours. And, that's just really the only real cure for a hangover, is a person to sleep it off and just, never doing it again. Really starting the day with an eye-opener morning drink, that's really just a sure sign that a person is alcohol dependent. And so we need to take that as a warning for people that have a hangover. It's not funny, it's not trivial. There's a lot of pain, misery, and disruption in a person's life who is drinking, in other people's life. And so the best thing to do is just to abstain from it altogether. And so thanks for being with us here for this lecture. And next lecture, we'll be looking at the law in drinking. So we'll just be going over some of that information. So come and be back with it there, and we'll see you then. Until the daybreak and the shadows flee away, I am Dr. Coop, and I love you, and I appreciate you.